Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking. About 4 years ago I made a video review, to be specific in January 2016, about the samurai armor set, the harness, the Tosei Gusoku 16th century samurai armor that I own, which was made by Iron Mountain Armory. Now at the time when I made this video, I had just received the armor and I obviously spoke about the quality of the production, the quality of the pieces, the way it was made, also the historical accuracy, and I believe I gave a little bit of a background on what the sort of armor was, how it was used historically, and a little bit about the difference between the Tosei Gusoku and older and more ancient versions of samurai armor. But now, after 4 years of intensive usage, I believe I'm rather well equipped to be able to speak about it, make a comprehensive usage review of this sort of armor, and also to understand if I would still recommend it like I did back in the day. And also we are going to see the conditions of this armor after having used it in an awful lot of different scenarios and situations. As number one, in what places have I used this armor, and in what scenarios, and in what weather conditions, and how did it work? As those who follow my channel already know, I've used this armor in the snow, on the mountains, in very cold conditions, under the rain, in heavy fog, in all sorts of conditions. And what really impressed me the most is that as I was wearing the armor in very cold conditions, that was not a problem for me. Also because of all the different layers that I was wearing underneath, of course that needs to be said. But wearing samurai armor when it's really cold was not a problem. When it was raining, it was not a problem because of the fact that the metal is completely covered in lacquer. Now, talking about the metal, because a lot of people ask me, and that's actually one of the reasons why I'm making this video, is to answer and reply to all those comments that ask me information about this samurai armor, because there are people out there in my community that wish to purchase a samurai set, and therefore they ask me a lot of questions about it. So when you look at samurai armor, usually you will deal with metal. Now, with that being said, there are also exceptions. Samurai armor could be made of leather, samurai armor could be made of iron. In the case of my replica, it's made of cold rolled milled steel. Now, is that historically accurate? The sort of steel that they use at Samurai Iron Mountain Armory, is it accurate to period? No. Meaning that, yes, some elite, high-level samurai armor suits would have been made of steel, absolutely. The Japanese did use steel for their armor, not just for their katana. However, the steel of the period would have not been as homogeneous as modern-day steel, although this can be said about any armorer out there. At the end of the day, no one really makes steel the way they did, even in medieval Europe. You could have had armor made of iron, but you also had armor made of steel. But yet, if you look at actual medieval steel armor, you will notice that even high-quality one would not be homogeneous. The amount of carbon in the plates would vary, and that is because essentially modern day steel is better. So from that point of view, it is very difficult to get your hands onto something that has the exact same kind of steel that they used in the past, whether it be Japanese or whether it be European. Still talking about materials, people ask me this, so I might want to cover it very quickly. No samurai armor was ever made of wood. No samurai armor was ever made of bamboo. Some low-end, off-the-shelf Ashigaru armor would have been made of many layers of paper. That existed. I know it sounds crazy, but you can look it up. It's true. But samurai armor was not made of bamboo. Samurai armor was not made of wood. Armor made of wood existed, but it's pre-samurai. We're talking about Iron Age armor, Yayoi period. You'll find videos on the Yayoi sort of warrior on my channel if you're interested, but not samurai. The lacquer used by Iron Mountain Armory for their samurai armor is also not historical. That is an actual choice though. I spoke with the CEO, Michael, the CEO of Iron Mountain Armory. We often chat. He's a really cool guy, very knowledgeable, and he did tell me that the reason why they do that is because otherwise, if they had to use the actual historically accurate lacquer that they used in the 16th century, for example, in Japan, then that would be toxic. So they choose not to do it. That's fine, I suppose. At the end of the day, the final result is very similar anyways. It's not something it would be noticeable. So at the end of the day, that's a good choice. But let's talk about the conditions. How are the conditions of my armor after I fought with it? Because I did that after I made many videos in all sorts of places. What are the conditions? Now let's look at every single piece. Of all the pieces, I have to say that the helmet is the one, the kabuto, is the one that stood the best. It still is in pristine conditions. It worked perfectly. I did make a modification to the original setup. If you notice, I don't have a mustache anymore. That's because I personally hate mustache on samurai armor. I know they do have a significance in terms of the cultural background of samurai armor. I understand. I still don't like them, but it's fine because I did find historical examples that did not have mustache, and although they are scant in terms of archaeological evidence, it still was possible. If you didn't have them, it would still be historical, so I had them removed. That's just my personal choice. I like the look of the demonic mask without the mustache on. Apart from that, the helmet is still in pristine condition, and that's the same for the lining inside. It's still working and it's still in perfect condition. Now, something that is not in perfect condition though is the leather cover of the inside of the plates of basically everything. So the door, the cuirass, as you can see, has an inside of leather cover, but as you can see, it is worn out. Now, not to the point that it can't be used. It's just an aesthetic point, really. It still works perfectly, but that is something that you might need to keep in mind. If you use it a lot, this is gonna get worn out. I personally am not bothered about it. I didn't buy it because I wanted it to be pretty. If I just wanted to look at it, I would just put it on top of a mannequin, and there you go, my perfect samurai armor. But I actually like the fact that it looks was used. And a similar situation happened to the shin guards, or the greaves, the suneate in Japanese. But then again, apart from that, the inside, the kyahan that are stitched inside, they're still there. One of the two got partially detached, but it's still there and it's still functional. Also, all the hinges and the loops on the main cuirass are still there and in perfect conditions. And that's actually an advantage over Roman armor, whereby instead with usage, because of the actual construction and the way it works and the way the weight is balanced, sometimes you will end up having broken loops, also because they're usually made of copper alloy, and therefore they are softer, and it does happen sometimes that they break. These loops here, 4 years of usage, no problem. One section that broke many times and I had to repair many times, and it was annoying, is the armored sleeves. The conditions of the sleeves, so the mail rings and the metal plates, they are still excellent, except for some of these long thin strings that sometimes, after a lot of usage and also coverage, because I fought in this, being hit a few times, sometimes the sewing broke, but again, very easy fix. But what I noticed tends to break very easily are the strings, the cotton, I think it is, strings used to secure them. Now that's a problem, and the way it broke as well, it was simply because perhaps I used them too tight, and then as you move your katana and you take your positions or you strike, sometimes they break. I want to say that happened at least 4 times, and I had to have it repaired. Now, if you know how to sew, it's a super easy fix. If you don't know how to sew, like in my case, then you just take them to the local tailor. It will take you some time to just explain to them what the heck you do with your life once they see that, because they get very curious, and they'd be like, wow, that's beautiful. What do you do? What is it? So they ask. But apart from that part of the, entertaining 5 minutes you might take to explain to them what a YouTuber is, after that, they fix it in one day. You gave back the day after, and it only cost me like $5. So it's not a problem. But I'm saying, maybe as a suggestion to Iron Mountain Armory, I would say you need to reinforce the stitching, the sewing, the knitting. I don't know how you do it, but you need to reinforce it and make it stronger, because this is a part that I notice tends to break. The haidate, so the protection of your thighs, perfect. Plates themselves, perfect condition, they look as good as new. Sode, or the protection for the shoulders as well, perfect condition, so there, nothing really happened. So at the end of the day, would I still recommend this armor after 4 years of usage as a content creator and someone who wears this stuff and fights with it and uses it, sometimes also abuses it? And the answer is yes, I would recommend them. Absolutely. Iron Mountain Armory makes really good products. However, there are some points that I think might need some improvement, one of which, as I said, are the strings and the sewing on these strings. Sometimes that could be made to last longer, in my humble opinion. But apart from that, I would still absolutely recommend them. Would I use it for a zombie apocalypse? Absolutely. I don't think any human teeth can go through that. Cold roll mill steel anyways. So yes, and it's also very light, the way you wear it, compared to even older versions of samurai armor, such as the Oyoroi, definitely lighter. The silhouette the way the weight of the armor is not on your shoulders, but it's mostly on your hips. It's really well made. I could wear my samurai armor all day, no problem. Of course, at the end of the day, I might have a little bit of a pain on my shoulders, stiff shoulders, but apart from that, absolutely. So yes, I would use it for the zombie apocalypse, maybe together with some heavy-duty boots. You know, you never know, one of those Muppets when they crawl on the ground. And you might want to wear some reinforced gloves, which I do believe they sell as well on the site. Now, I've read some comments recently of people saying that they saw some specific armor set made by Iron Mountain Armory, and then they compared it to the original, and then they said, look, it's not good quality. And one thing that these people don't understand is that Iron Mountain Armory offers 3 levels of quality depending on your budget. So yes, if you spend the maximum amount possible, you will get the best quality, and if you spend the least amount possible, then of course your replica will not be able to match the same level as an original from the time. This is something that I think it should be common sense, but apparently it's not. So that's something I need to say. But it's just one of those things whereby the more you pay, the better the quality will be. Personally, I would suggest you to get the Gashira level, so the intermediate, because unless you have a lot of money, in which case they for sure go for the 3rd level. But the 2nd level I think is the best, in my opinion, because it's still budget friendly, particularly in these times. And but it's not, I wouldn't really recommend one of those entry level, basic level samurai armor, because I think if you're going for it, you might as well get something that will last longer and it will look better, and then, you know, you can keep as something you really like rather than having to buy something that is too cheap. You better wait. It's my opinion, but that's what I did. Just wait a little longer and get something that is worth it, rather than buying something cheap and then having to change it anyways in the future. Just as a piece of friendly advice for those of you who want to buy samurai armor. Okay, but I hope that you enjoyed this video review. If you did, please remember thumbs up, and if you're not members of this community, become a noble one. Subscribe to my channel for more content from the Metatron, and if you have other questions, of course, feel free to let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.